Now, I've been a professional photographer for over 15 years, probably nearer to 20 because I've been saying 15 for as long as I can remember. There's a common theme in the whole self-employed world. This is not just for photographers, this is anyone who's self-employed. And it's this reason people go into it, and it's completely the wrong reason because it just isn't true. But it's one of those like myths that's just passed around on the internet everywhere. And people just keep going, yes, well, that's where I'm going to do it. Now, if anything, I would say the people who want to be a photographer for this reason are the most likely to fail, regardless of skill, because they lack something. So let's break this whole problem down. Let's look at the realities of it, and let's look at how we can work through it. If you're on that boat and you do want to make it as a photographer, but you're coming across this hurdle. Now, here's what it is. Here's how it goes. A lot of people are like, yeah, be a photographer, be a freelancer, be your own boss. I can't work for anybody else. I don't want to have a boss breathing down my neck. I want to be my own boss. And that's an interesting concept because, well, firstly, you will have a boss if you're a freelancer, but why don't you want a boss? What is it that makes you go, I don't want a boss? Is it that you don't want to be told that you have to do something? Is it that you don't want to be told that what you've done is wrong? Is it that you don't get on with people? And I'd fathom it's all three. I don't want a boss. One of the reasons I love YouTube is because I thought I didn't have a boss. Turns out I do. It's the 50,000 of you who subscribe to the channel. If I don't produce work you like, you are my boss, I don't get paid. And photography is very much this case. Let's look at the last couple of weeks. So I've been doing some work for my agent. She's my boss. I've been doing some work for a client. He was my boss. I've been doing some work for some brands via YouTube. They are my boss. There is always a boss. Whenever money is transacting between you, there is a boss. I've had some assistants in this week. I was their boss. They might think they work for themselves, but when they're in here on my dime, I am their boss. Now, the big problem with freelancing is that you don't just have one boss. And some people are like, well, that's great because if you don't like them, you can move around. But the problem is if you ruin a relationship with one boss, you don't get repeat business. I mean, in the ideal world, as freelance photographers, we should have as few bosses as possible. We should be getting repeat business from those same people. We should always be getting the work. And because of that, we have the boss. Now, what if you are one of these people who goes, I hate having a boss. I hate working for the man. Well, some cold hard truths coming your way. You're going to have to if you want to work. And if anything, I would say having a good working relationship with your boss is even more important as a freelancer because they can just bin you. They don't want to use you tomorrow. They just don't. There's no laws protecting us as freelancers. That's why we charge more. We charge to be free. Whereas if you have a boss and you've been working there for 10 years, it's not as easy for them to kick you to the curb. So we really have to be, on it with our bosses. But what do we do? What do we do for those of you who are not wanting it? I'm afraid you're not going to like the answer. You've got to work on your skills. Now, chances are, and I know this because obviously I know people and I know myself, people who don't like having a boss don't like being told what to do. They don't like being told they're wrong. You need to go and do some soul searching. You need to probably go and see a therapist because part of our world that we live in is that we work in a hierarchical structure. If you don't want to be part of that world, that's fine. I have no qualms. If you want to go, do you know what? I'm going to go and hermit it up. Go be a hermit. I am, whatever makes you happy. This is not saying that this is the way to do it, the only way. But if you want to be a professional photographer, you have to be able to work with a boss. It is part of the package, and it's even more important. And the biggest reason photographers fail is because they don't want a boss, and they behave like can't think of a word that doesn't go into YouTube's censor bit, but they behave like one of those, and because of that, they never progress. I had a great one-to-one with a really intelligent guy last week, and he was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it. These people here have better work than me, and they've not made it. And my question is, by any chance, are they a bit of a nightmare? Choose a different word for nightmare. And he said, yeah, they are a bit actually. And I was like, well, that's why they've not made it, because their boss each time doesn't come back for a repeat business. And there's not enough clients out there in the world for us to have a different client every day. It just doesn't work like that in the commercial world. Sure, family portraits, but really, if they're having a second and third child, you're going to want to get them as well. So just rethink this. And I think it's one of those things that if you're thinking, yeah, I want to be my own boss, just keep in mind it's not quite like that. And also, I am my own boss, as it were. I have a limited company and I have a sole trading company. And the sole trader, it's me. The limited company, I own it. I run it. It's my company. And as well as having a different boss every day, I also have to be the boss every day. And it's kind of a double whammy. I have to deal with people working with me. I have to deal with people at the tier below, not socially or anything else like that, but like, I am the boss whilst having a boss. And it's not being middle management, it's very different because you are doing the job of a boss whilst having another boss. And it gets really complicated when you shoot commercially and you have agents and producers and art buyers. There's bosses everywhere. It isn't what people think it is. And I think that's the point I want to drill home here, is that if you're doing this because you want to be your own boss, don't. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.